Hello and welcome to our first property market update of 2025, the January property market update.
Yes.
And what a January it's been. We've had some interesting data coming out from a number of sources, obviously the usual Halifax nationwide, Rightmove stats have come in as well for the start of the year, and it's quite a positive outlook, to be honest, and certainly more positive than I was anticipating as we were ending 24 and looking at 25. So, Rob, we've got national figures, and we've obviously got Oxfordshire figures, which is the whole point of this, is that we distill it down to what's actually happening locally. But first, on a national picture, what data have we got that's interesting?
Yeah, so I think from the volume of transactions over the course of the last year, so we've really seen that 2024 was we've always said is a recovery year from 2023. New sales agreed were up by 12% in 24 compared to 23, which is a positive trend and one that is expected to continue. The average house prices were 2% higher in December 24 than they were in December 23. So again, nationally they've improved, not by huge amounts, but there has been an improvement there. And similarly, private rents have also increased. They've gone up by 9% in the 12 months from December to December. So overall, the picture nationally is on the up, shall we say.
It is on the up. I can put a negative spin on anything. I've got a bit of a reputation for that. And actually, it's 2% increase. Inflation was, 2.3?
Yeah.
So actually, yes, it's gone up, it's stable, it's steady, but actually prices aren't galloping out of reach. No. And it's a really interesting problem that we have. People are like, don't buy a house, they're the most expensive they've ever been. Well, that's like saying, don't buy a beer, it's the most expensive it's ever been. Everything goes up. It's inflation. It's just the way it is.
Everything goes up.
So,
exactly. But as always, we want to whittle that down to Oxfordshire, what's actually happening.
Thank you for bringing it.
Yes, I'll rein it back in. So Oxfordshire, the picture is very different. So the average asking prices for all property types at the moment are 9% higher this year. So brilliant. January 25 than they were in January 24. So we've already seen a boost over the course of the last year to the house prices. It's the detached properties, they're the ones that are seeing the highest increase. So they've gone up by about 12% over the course of the last year. So I think the average...
Flats are the ones that are struggling.
Flats are struggling.
The doom-monger here, it's still a hangover from the COVID days that flats just stick on the market.
But interesting, obviously, what I was saying before about the 9% for asking prices, the picture for actually sold prices and actual completed figures is slightly different. That's actually coming in from latest data we have is up to November 24. So from November 23 to November 24, they went up by 4.4%.
Yeah.
So it goes to show there is still a tendency out there that house prices and the asking price of those properties are still a little bit too inflated, and that in order to achieve a sale in a reasonable timescale, you do really want to get that figure right straight away.
Yeah, exactly right. Having an accurate initial valuation significantly increases the probability of selling.
Yeah.
And there's an astonishing statistic which actually Rightmove issued, which is that 52% of all properties that go on the market actually sell, and 48% come off unsold. Now that is absurd, that when you list your house for sale with an average agent, it's a toss of a coin whether you're going to actually sell or not. Whereas our ratio is now over 85%, I think, something ridiculously high in comparison. And that's primarily down to accurate valuations. We're not afraid of losing the instruction at that point. So we'll sit the client down and just say, look, here's the data, let's go. And I'm focusing more in Oxford City and that sort of thing. There's some corporate agents there. I've got a number of clients that I'm looking after who started their journeys £100,000 more than they were on the market for with a corporate agent, and they've now come on and I've had to talk them through the data, but they've damaged their listing because it's been on the market for a year at
an inflated price.
Yeah,
exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. So Alistair, talk to us about sales volumes and that sort of thing. So what are we looking at in terms of...
1.1 million is the expected final figure. Land registry data is always quite lagged because of course the solicitors have got up to 30 days to register the information, and then it needs to be processed as well. So it's so out of date, it's frustrating. There are a lot of other measurements in terms of metrics where people can kind of monitor the market. So although all the data isn't yet in, the expectation is it'll be about 1.1 million. Now, how does that relate to the wider market? Well, in 2021 was the absolute pinnacle. That was the race for space post-COVID, but also it was the race for taking advantage of the massive stamp duty holiday, which was a £15,000 saving on average. Now, that year we saw 1.5 million transactions go through. Literally then 23, we saw 900,000. So that was the straight afterwards. And that was not because, I mean, admittedly, we had inflation, hyperinflation, we had the Liz Truss bomb, we had interest rates going up vertically. So it was a perfect storm. But in addition to that, when you've got a stamp duty incentive as strong as that, that pulls forward a lot of people that would have moved in the next 2 or 3 years. They're then pulling forward their decision to move. Yeah. That's then accelerated the kind of energy in the market and left basically a vacuum of buyers. And so 2023 saw all those 4 elements kind of, which just
together into one.
Tanked it just tanked the volume of transactions. So up to 1.1, my forecast for this year is probably 1.2. I honestly think, unless there's a big geopolitical shock, which, as we all know, is maybe quite likely at the moment.
Possible,
it could be World War III, who knows? But unless there's a large geopolitical shock, I'm anticipating a good, steady volume of consistent transactions.
And that's sort of very, I think Zoopla have set it to be about 1.15, give or take. Yeah. So there's, I think that volume is where we can anticipate.
Absolutely.
So, translating that to locally, we'll probably see between 5 and 10%
growth in
transactional volumes over the course of this year, even locally.
It's interesting, actually, when we look at the local data. I was looking at Oxfordshire, and it was actually Oxford City itself. So so OX 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not OX 5. And sale volumes were up 10% year on year. New listings was up 5% year on year. Now that's good to see. There's that growth, but if you've got 5% more listings, 10% more sales, that means the house prices are likely to go up, because it's a supply and demand market. Yeah. The reason house prices came down during the global financial crisis was because everyone was selling and no one was buying. So, prices come down and down. So it's really interesting. Like I say, I've got a lot of confidence in prices of properties and sale volumes. So that's quite cool.
Good.
The lettings side of things.
Yes, the rental market.
Do you want to give us some lettings?
Yeah, well, there's been a dip over the course of the last 6-8 months locally. So around Oxfordshire, there's been a bit of a dip in rental prices. They came down by about sort of between 3 and 4% locally. The expectation is that they're going to rise, and there's probably going to be a bit of a surge in rental prices over the course of this year as well. Led mostly in part to the amount of landlords leaving the sector and selling up their investments to put their money in other matters. And I think what you'll probably see over the course of this year is that number of first-time buyer homes, so those one-bed flats, the 2-bedroom mid-terrace houses, I think you're going to see from a first-time buyer perspective, that's going to help drive the housing market in terms of sales, but actually is going to hurt the rentals. Again, we go back to supply and demand. There's going to be a huge demand for property as landlords are moving out of the sector and properties are becoming less available. Their rental prices are going to go up.
Do you think we'll find a lot, this is good for the sales market as a result, because if you're a young couple and you're paying literally £1,200 for a flat in Oxford, for a one-bed flat, £1,200 is insane. You can get a mortgage for
less than that to buy the same flat.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'll find that if they can borrow £30,000 off grandma, they can end up buying that flat or the equivalent flat and saving money whilst then still developing their own wealth for the long term.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Honestly, when people zig, you should zag. I'm actually, as a property professional, having a deep understanding of the property market. I am buying buy-to-let properties at the moment. I bought one earlier this year. I'm buying one right now. I keep teasing this, and I have to find the time to do it. But I want to do a screen share with people who view this channel to show them my spreadsheet and my maths for why it is still actually, even though I'm buying a £200,000 flat and you're paying £10,000 stamp duty, it still stacks up to do it. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But like I said, I keep teasing it. I will at some stage get my head down and do it. It's just there's not enough hours in a day. That's the problem.
That's it. It's always the way.
Anyway, any wrapping up thoughts?
Yeah, I think over the course of 2025, this is the first of 2025, so look out for these monthly. We've obviously got the stamp duty change coming in April, which is going to impact people. I hate to be a naysayer, but if you haven't bought a property by now, you aren't going to be hitting April. The chances are it's going to be very difficult for you to do so.
The average transaction conveyancing times from sale agreed to people moving house is 4 months. Yeah. So, people sales that were agreed in October, November, and maybe early December, they're the ones who are going to be able to take advantage of the change.
We're going to be finding that conveyancing solicitors are going to be completely under the cosh for people trying to get things done by the end of March. So solicitors are going to be massively overworked during that time. So it's just something to be mindful of. But again, the new stamp duty will become the new norm again, which actually is the same norm that it was 2 or 3 years ago. Anyway, so it is just the way these things move. It ebbs and flows, and you've got to roll with the punches with it, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up there because
Yes.
we need to try and keep these things punchy. So thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time.
Yes, doodle.